The stupid man isn't the one with low IQ. He's the one repeating the same wounds, blind to himself, thinking he's wise. What if the very habits you excuse every day are the signs of stupidity destroying your life? Carl Jung believed what we refuse to face within becomes the destiny we cannot escape. And maybe, just maybe, you've been that man longer than you want to admit. Picture Marcus, 34 years old. Good job, decent apartment, seems to have it together from the outside. But Marcus has been fired 3 times in 5 years. Each time he had the same story. My boss was threatened by me. The company was toxic. They couldn't handle my honesty. His relationships follow the same pattern. Sarah left because he couldn't handle strong women. Jessica was too needy. Maria was playing games. Marcus reads self-help books. He quotes philosophers. He has strong opinions about everything. He considers himself intelligent, aware, evolved. But here's what Marcus can't see. He's trapped in a prison of his own unconscious patterns. And the very thing he thinks makes him superior is what's destroying his life. Jung called this the shadow. The parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. The wounds we won't face. The patterns we repeat while calling ourselves wise. Marcus isn't stupid because he lacks intelligence. He's stupid because he's unconscious. And unconsciousness, Jung taught us, is the most dangerous form of stupidity there is. There's a war happening inside every man, a battle Jung understood with startling clarity, the split between who we think we are and who we actually are when no one's watching. The persona, the carefully crafted mask we wear to survive in the world, to be accepted, to feel valuable. The shadow, everything we've rejected about ourselves, pushed into the darkness, denied and disowned until it operates us from behind the scenes. Most men live their entire lives in this split, never realizing they're fighting themselves. They blame their failures on everything except the one place they refuse to look within. They become what Jung called unconsciously stupid, not intellectually deficient, but psychologically blind, living from their shadow, while convinced they're living from wisdom. These aren't signs of a bad person. They're signs of an unconscious person, someone who's let his unhealed wounds drive the car while he sits in the passenger seat, white-knuckling the steering wheel, pretending to be in control. Today, I want to show you 6 signs that reveal when a man has become unconsciously stupid. 6 patterns that destroy lives while masquerading as strength, wisdom, or authenticity. Sign 1. He thinks he knows everything. The Dunning-Kruger effect in human form. The less conscious he is, the more certain he becomes. True intelligence breeds humility. Stupidity breeds arrogance. Sign 2. He refuses responsibility. Everything is someone else's fault. His parents, his boss, society, women, the economy, his genetics, everyone but him. He's perfected the art of being the victim in every story. Sign 3. He cannot control his emotions. He's reactive, impulsive, controlled by feelings he claims to have mastered. He calls it authenticity. Jung would call it unconsciousness. Sign 4. He's surrounded by fools. The people in his life reflect his own consciousness or lack thereof. But instead of looking inward, he judges outward. Sign 5. He chases pleasure instead of discipline. Instant gratification over long-term growth. Comfort over courage. Pleasure over purpose. He's optimizing for feeling good instead of becoming good. Sign 6. He never learns from his mistakes. Same patterns, different faces. Jung called this repetition compulsion, the unconscious drive to recreate the same wounds, hoping for a different outcome. Each of these signs points to the same root, a man living unconsciously, driven by his Carl Jung shadow, convinced he's evolved when he's actually trapped. The question that might be burning in your chest right now, the one you might be trying to push away, is this: how many of these signs am I carrying without knowing it? That discomfort you're feeling, that resistance, that's your shadow trying to stay hidden. But today, we're dragging it into the light. Sign 1 thinks he knows everything. Thinking is difficult, that's why most people judge. Carl Jung. David walks into every room like he owns it. He has opinions about politics, psychology, spirituality, relationships. Ask him about quantum physics and he'll give you a confident answer. Ask him about childhood trauma and he'll psychoanalyze you. But here's what David doesn't know: the more unconscious a man is, the more certain he becomes. True intelligence breeds humility. Wisdom whispers, stupidity shouts. The shadow operating here is deep shame masquerading as superiority. David can't afford to not know something, because not knowing would trigger the wound that says, "I'm not enough." So he creates a persona of the all-knowing man. But personas are prisons, and the price of maintaining this mask is losing touch with reality. The truly intelligent man says, "I don't know more than I know." He asks questions instead of giving answers. He listens to understand, not to reply. Sign 2 refuses responsibility. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Carl Jung. Michael's life is a series of unfortunate events that happened to him never because of him. His father was absent, so he can't maintain relationships. His boss is incompetent, so he can't succeed at work. Society is broken, so he can't find his purpose. Every story Michael tells casts him as the victim and someone else as the villain. He's mastered the art of avoiding accountability while maintaining his self-image as a good person. But Jung understood something profound. What we refuse to take responsibility for owns us. The parts of our story we won't claim continue to play out again and again until we have the courage to say, "This is mine." The shadow here is the terror of being truly seen as flawed. If Michael takes responsibility, he might have to face the shame, the inadequacy, the fear that lives beneath his victim stories. But here's the paradox. The moment you take full responsibility for your life is the moment you reclaim your power. Victims are powerless. Creators are limitless. Take a moment and ask yourself, what story have I been telling about why my life isn't working? And what would happen if I stopped telling it? Sign 3 cannot control his emotions. True power isn't the ability to dominate others. It's the ability to master yourself. James prides himself on being passionate, authentic, real. When he's angry, he explodes because that's just who he is. When he's hurt, he withdraws because he needs space. When he's triggered, he reacts because he's not going to fake being okay. James thinks emotional reactivity is strength, but Jung knew better. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The man who cannot control his emotions is controlled by them. He's a slave to every trigger, every wound, every unprocessed pain from his past. The shadow operating here is usually the wounded child who never learned emotional regulation. The boy who was told his feelings didn't matter. So now, the man explodes to finally be heard. Or the boy who was overwhelmed by chaos. So now the man withdraws to finally feel safe. But emotional mastery isn't about suppression. It's about response instead of reaction. It's about feeling fully while choosing consciously. The conscious man feels his anger and chooses his words. He feels his pain and chooses his actions. He feels his fear and chooses his direction. Sign 4. Surrounded by fools. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Look around you. The people in your life are a mirror of your consciousness. If you're surrounded by drama, chaos, and unconsciousness, that's not bad luck, that's resonance. Robert complains constantly about the people in his life. His co-workers are idiots. His friends are shallow. His family is toxic. Everyone around him is operating at a lower level, and he's frustrated by their inability to see what he sees. But here's what Robert can't see. Consciousness attracts consciousness. The level of awareness you operate from determines the people you draw into your life and the people you're drawn to. The shadow here is often the part of us that needs to feel superior to feel safe. If Robert acknowledged that the people in his life reflect something about him, he'd have to face his own unconsciousness. It's easier to judge others than to examine ourselves. It's easier to feel superior than to feel responsible. The conscious man doesn't judge the people in his life, he takes inventory. He asks, what is this relationship teaching me about myself? What pattern am I perpetuating? What wound am I avoiding? And then he either grows or he moves. He either heals the pattern or he changes the environment. But he never blames the mirror for what it's showing him. Sign 5. Chases pleasure instead of discipline. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. Modern life offers infinite distractions from the work of becoming who you're meant to be. Porn, social media, substances, shopping, entertainment, all designed to keep you comfortable and unconscious. The stupid man mistakes comfort for happiness. He thinks pleasure is the path to fulfillment. He optimizes for feeling good instead of becoming good. Alex spends his evenings scrolling, his weekends drinking, his free time consuming. He's always planning to start that workout routine, write that book, learn that skill. But when the moment comes to choose between pleasure and growth, pleasure wins every time. The shadow here is the void inside that demands to be filled. Alex chases pleasure not because it makes him happy, but because it temporarily drowns out the emptiness, the inadequacy, the fear of who he might be if he stopped running. But Jung understood that happiness comes from meaning, not pleasure. Fulfillment comes from becoming, not consuming. The conscious man delays gratification for growth. He chooses discomfort for development. He knows that the path to who he's meant to become runs through everything he's been avoiding. What are you using pleasure to avoid? What growth are you postponing for comfort? Sign 6. Never learns from his mistakes. What you resist persists. Carl Jung. This is the most devastating sign of all the inability to break the pattern. Tom has been in the same relationship 3 times with 3 different women. He's been fired from the same job at 5 different companies. He's had the same fight with his father for 20 years. The faces change, the locations shift, but the story stays the same. Tom is trapped in what Jung called repetition compulsion, unconsciously recreating the same wounds, hoping for a different outcome. The shadow here is the unintegrated trauma that drives the pattern. Tom can't heal what he won't acknowledge, can't change what he won't see, can't break what he won't own. Every mistake carries a message. Every failure contains a lesson. Every pattern points to a wound that needs healing. The conscious man doesn't just experience his pain, he extracts its wisdom. He doesn't just survive his failures, he mines them for gold. He asks, what is this trying to teach me? What pattern am I repeating? What wound is driving this behavior? And then he does the hardest thing of all. He stops running from himself and starts running toward himself. Right now, you might be feeling something uncomfortable in your chest. Maybe anger at being called out. Maybe shame at recognizing yourself. Maybe sadness at seeing how long you've been trapped. Maybe fear of what it would mean to change. You might be seeing yourself in Marcus David Michael James, Robert Alex, or Tom. You might be realizing that the very things you've been judging in others have been living inside you all along. You might be understanding that the patterns you thought were just bad luck are actually unconscious choices. This discomfort you're feeling. This isn't punishment. It's awakening. Jung called this the dark night of the soul. The moment when the comfortable lies we tell ourselves stop working and we're forced to face the truth about who we've been and how we've been living. The question that changes everything. The question that separates the unconsciously stupid from the consciously wise. How many of these signs live inside me right now? Not as judgment, not as shame, but as recognition, as the first step toward consciousness, as the beginning of the end of unconscious patterns. Because here's what I know about you. You're not stupid. You're not broken. You're not hopeless. You're just unconscious in some areas of your life. We all are. The difference between wisdom and stupidity isn't intelligence, it's awareness. The unconsciously stupid man repeats his wounds and calls it wisdom. He defends his patterns and calls it authenticity. He avoids his Carl Jung shadow and calls it strength. He stays comfortable and calls it happiness. The conscious man faces his wounds and transforms them into strength. He examines his patterns and breaks the destructive ones. He integrates his shadow and finds his wholeness. He chooses growth over comfort and finds true fulfillment. Marcus could have kept blaming his bosses, his girlfriends, the world. But the day he asked, "What if this pattern is trying to show me something about myself?" was the day his life started changing. The day he stopped being unconsciously stupid and started being consciously wise. David could have kept knowing everything and connecting with no one. But the moment he said, "I don't know," and meant it was the moment he opened himself to real learning, real growth, real intimacy. Michael could have stayed the eternal victim of circumstances. But when he took responsibility not for what happened to him, but for his response to what happened, he reclaimed his power and his purpose. The pain you've been running from isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. The patterns you've been repeating aren't your fate. They're your curriculum. The shadow you've been avoiding isn't your weakness. It's your greatest source of untapped strength. Jung wrote, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." What cave have you been avoiding? What treasure is waiting in the darkness you refuse to face? This is your moment. This is your choice. You can keep living from your shadow driven by unconscious patterns, repeating the same mistakes and calling it life. You can keep being unconsciously stupid while thinking you're wise. Or you can step into consciousness, face your Carl Jung shadow, integrate your patterns, transform your pain into power. Become the man you're actually meant to be instead of the persona you've been performing. The path isn't easy. It requires courage to face what you've been avoiding, honesty to see what you've been denying, and commitment to change what you've been repeating. But it's the only path to real wisdom, real strength, real fulfillment. It's the only path to becoming consciously alive instead of unconsciously stupid. Consciousness isn't a destination you reach. It's a practice you commit to. Every day you choose, will I live from awareness or unconsciousness? Will I respond or react? Will I grow or repeat? Here's how to break free from unconscious stupidity. Practice brutal honesty with yourself. Stop telling yourself comfortable lies. Stop making excuses. Stop blaming others for your life. Look in the mirror and see what's actually there, not what you wish was there. Stay humble and teachable. The moment you think you know everything is the moment you stop growing. Approach life as a student, not a teacher. Ask questions. Admit when you're wrong. Let others surprise you. Master your emotional world. Feel deeply but respond consciously. Create space between trigger and reaction. Breathe. Think. Choose. Your emotions are information, not instructions. Surround yourself with consciousness. Seek out people who challenge you, support you, and reflect back your potential. Avoid those who enable your unconsciousness or celebrate your smallness. Choose discipline over pleasure. Build the life you want, not the life that feels good in the moment. Delay gratification for growth. Choose difficulty for development. Learn from every mistake. Extract the lesson from every failure. See the pattern in every repetition. Transform every wound into wisdom. Jung said, "The greatest burden a man carries is the unlived life within him." What life have you been not living? Because you've been too unconscious to see it. The man you're meant to become is on the other side of the shadow you're avoiding. The life you're meant to live is on the other side of the patterns you're repeating. You have everything you need to break free. The question is, will you? The fool repeats his wounds and calls them wisdom. The wise man transforms his wounds into strength. Which one will you choose to be? You've seen the mirror. You've recognized the patterns. You've felt the discomfort of truth piercing through comfortable lies. You've glimpsed the shadow you've been carrying, the unconsciousness that's been driving your life while you thought you were in control. Now comes the most important part. What will you do with this awareness? Because awareness without action is just spiritual entertainment. Recognition without response is just psychological masturbation. Understanding without integration is just unconscious stupidity in a more sophisticated disguise. Jung's work on the Carl Jung shadow wasn't meant to be understood. It was meant to be lived, integrated, embodied. The shadow isn't something you study in books. It's something you face in the mirror. It's not a concept you discuss. It's a reality you integrate. The 6 signs I've shared with you aren't just observations about other people. They're invitations to examine yourself. They're mirrors reflecting back the ways you might be unconsciously stupid while thinking you're consciously wise. So I'll leave you with this question that will determine the trajectory of your life. Are you ready to stop being unconsciously stupid and start being consciously wise? Are you ready to stop thinking you know everything and start admitting what you don't know? Are you ready to stop blaming everyone else and start taking responsibility for your own patterns? Are you ready to stop being controlled by your emotions and start mastering your inner world? Are you ready to stop surrounding yourself with unconsciousness and start seeking out people who challenge you to grow? Are you ready to stop chasing pleasure and start building discipline? Are you ready to stop repeating your mistakes and start learning from them? The shadow work isn't comfortable. It requires looking at parts of yourself you'd rather ignore, facing patterns you'd rather deny, owning behaviors you'd rather excuse. But neither is living unconsciously. Neither is repeating the same patterns and wondering why your life isn't changing. Neither is being trapped in cycles of unconscious stupidity, while the life you're meant to live waits just beyond your willingness to see yourself clearly. Your Carl Jung shadow isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. Your patterns aren't your fate, they're your curriculum. Your pain isn't your punishment, it's your path to power and wholeness. The unconscious man is controlled by forces he can't see and patterns he won't acknowledge. The conscious man sees clearly, chooses consciously, and lives intentionally. He faces his shadow and integrates it. He owns his patterns and transforms them. He learns from his mistakes and breaks the cycles. The journey from unconscious stupidity to conscious wisdom begins the moment you stop running from yourself and start running toward yourself. It begins when you stop defending your limitations and start facing them. It begins when you choose growth over comfort, truth over convenience, consciousness over unconsciousness. If this message has reached something deep inside you, if you've recognized yourself in these patterns, if you're feeling the uncomfortable awakening that comes from seeing yourself clearly, that's not punishment. That's possibility. That's the beginning of becoming who you're actually meant to be. Let me know in the comments, which of these 6 signs did you recognize in yourself? What pattern are you ready to break? What shadow are you ready to face? Your courage to be honest might inspire someone else to face their own unconsciousness. And if you're ready to dive deeper into this work, to explore Jung's teachings more fully, to join a community of men who are choosing consciousness over comfort and growth over stagnation, subscribe and become part of a movement of men who are waking up to their own unconscious patterns and choosing to transform them. The unconsciously stupid man thinks he's already wise and has nothing left to learn. The consciously wise man knows that every day offers new opportunities for growth, awareness, and transformation. The fool repeats his wounds. The wise man transforms them. Which one are you choosing to be? Not who you've been, but who you're becoming. Not your patterns from the past, but your choices in this moment. The answer to that question will determine whether you stay trapped in unconscious stupidity or step into conscious wisdom. Choose wisely. Your life, your real life, the one you're meant to live, depends on it.